It's Tuesday, January 5, and this is your Barbados Today Morning News Update. Thanks for joining us. Barbados will not be closing its borders despite the recent dramatic rise in coronavirus cases, which now stand at 606. Amid growing concern about visitors flouting COVID protocols and calls for a shutdown in light of recent developments, Prime Minister Mottley told a national update on the situation last evening that visitor levels were manageable and a shutdown is not the answer.
In every instance, load factors are much less coming in the next 10 to 12 days as opposed to going back out. So we have to be able to allow persons to get back home who have come here as short-term visitors. And it's against that background we had an extensive session with the Ministry of Health to ensure that the numbers which are coming in will not put undue strain on our healthcare system. I've said, however, in the past that I know how to press brakes and I know how to press the accelerator. And if we need to press further brakes on this matter, believe you me, we should and will. But what we are very clear on is that a national shutdown of our borders or a national lockdown of the country will carry with it significant pressures to other types of persons and to all kinds of issues.
Prime Minister Mottley, however, made it clear that government will take action against anyone breaching the COVID-19 protocols. She disclosed that electronic monitoring bracelets will be distributed from today to patients, and this will help to contain those bent on flouting the rules.
That will be a significant improvement in our capacity to ensure that people don't play the fool with respect to following the protocols. The second major difference is what Dr. George would have announced. Prior to this, you would have had some level of restricted movement on property. We are believing, and we've said that for the first 48 hours, persons must remain in their room, particularly during this heightened period, and especially with the absence of high levels of vaccination. And therefore, in that respect, we expect that those persons who come in for quarantine will spend the first 2 days in their room before then being able to go out and mix, subject, of course, to them having a negative test result.
Meanwhile, Health and Wellness Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic is standing by the country's entry protocols. He maintains they are working while acknowledging that the breach in quarantine protocols have been the challenge.
There were breaches to the quarantine protocols. We have been fighting that is known. We had that, that is not a secret. That is something that we've been working on. I can tell you that I can think of at least 10 breaches. Some persons have been brought before the law courts and prosecuted, and there are others where the process is ongoing. But I do not think that one can say that it had to do with the entry protocol, and that is the one that I'm speaking about at this point in time. There are several protocols that are guiding us through this process, but I am saying that I am confident that the entry protocol is holding its own.
Sandals will be delisted as a designated quarantine hotel from today after several internal breaches of the COVID-19 protocols. Chairman of the Cabinet COVID Subcommittee, Senator Jerome Walcott, however, made it clear that the hotel has been working with health authorities to improve their standards to prevent the spread of the coronavirus.
I met with Sandals management and officials from the ministry, and we looked at Sandals came with a plan in terms recognizing that there had been some breaches. They recognized that and looked at how going forward they could improve certain of these measures. I'm informed by Mr. Ronald Chapman, who is in charge of the monitoring unit, that as discussed, they paid a visit again to Sandals on Saturday. He's informed me that there have been substantial improvements and they will continue working with Sandals so that they meet again the requirements of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
There's a wider call for Barbadians to adhere to the country's COVID-19 protocols. Head of Infection Prevention and Control Infectious Diseases Program at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Dr. Corey Ford, warned that he has seen more young people testing positive for the viral illness and underscored the need for people to stick to the basics, especially the wearing of masks.
If you're in a room with a person with COVID, I could stand in a room with a person with COVID, and once I have my mask on and I use the appropriate hand sanitizer, which is graded, then it puts you in a state to decrease your risk. It's like what we do at Harson's Point. People are afraid when they say, "Oh, I work at Harson's Point, I don't want to come next to you," which is, the way how it almost was when HIV started. The truth is, the reason why you're doing these protective measures is to stop that spread from you. So I could be in the same room as someone who has COVID, but once I have my mask on, it decreases that risk of transmission to myself. Once I use the appropriate hand hygiene with that greater than 60% alcohol solution, because that's important, then your risk is reduced. Certainly by wearing a mask, at least more than 80% reduction in transmission from that individual directly to you.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional news, legendary Jamaican hotelier and chairman of the renowned Sandals Resort, Gordon Butts Stewart, passed away last evening at the age of 79 in the United States. His son Adam Stewart, who made a disclosure, said his father was recently diagnosed with an illness he opted to keep private. Adam described his father as a gifted entrepreneur, a marketing genius, and talented showman. Adam added that his father was a singular personality and an unstoppable force who reveled in defying the odds, exceeding expectations, and whose passion for his family was matched only by the people and possibility of the Caribbean, for whom he was a fierce champion. On the international scene, a British judge on Monday ruled that the WikiLeaks founder should not be extradited to the United States to face espionage charges for publishing hundreds of thousands of secret documents online. The judge said the 49-year-old was a suicide risk if he was sent into custody across the Atlantic.
Supporters of Julian Assange erupt in cheers as Judge Vanessa Beretzer handed down her ruling rejecting the United States request to extradite him, citing concerns over his mental health.
She refused extradition at the last moment, in the last words of her judgment, because she accepted that Julian Assange was a suicide risk and that if he was put under special administrative measures in the United States prison system, that would be an oppressive act. And on that basis, she refused extradition.
The ruling follows over a decade of international legal controversies surrounding the WikiLeaks founder. The Trump administration wants him to face charges of espionage over the publishing of hundreds of thousands of leaked American military documents a decade ago. In one of them, a U.S. helicopter pilot can be seen shooting dead Iraqi civilians in 2007. The U.S. charges brought against Assange carry a maximum sentence of 175 years in prison. Washington considers Assange an individual who has put lives at risk, possibly endangering informants and sources by leaking classified information. But to his supporters and rights groups, Assange is a flag bearer for freedom of the press. The Australian has spent most of the last decade trying to avoid extradition.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.